slight tardiness, but I'm coming from downtown. We were just celebrating and recognizing the fact that we once again going to be hosting an event that had a $24 million economic impact on the city of Shreveport. So the Bass Master Class will be back here in 2012, and we're down at the Convention Center in Carolina State 20 and came down to you as quick as I could. So thank you all for being here. We're going to start off with a prayer from one of our own, the Department of Community Development, Fred Thomas, and then we'll have welcome and introductory comments from your own, Councilman Joe Shine, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you much.
Let us just bow our heads. Father God, we thank you for this day. This is the day that you have made, that you said we should rejoice and be glad in it. We thank you for all of your good and perfect gifts. We thank you for Jesus, Father, who has led us from darkness into the marvelous light. We ask your blessing upon each person that's assembled here in this auditorium. We pray, Heavenly Father, that you would allow your Holy Spirit to lead and guide us in this community briefing. Help us to do the things that will be pleasing and acceptable in your eyesight. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let me welcome you all out tonight. And as I look around, most of y'all at home anyway. So there's no use to me welcoming you to your own home. But it's so good that you all came out tonight, because what we are talking about is the mayor is bringing to us an opportunity to get some of our streets and our sidewalks fixed. And this is something that we have not done very much of a long time, because we didn't have the money. You know, it's kind of like it is at home. You don't have the money, there's not very much you can do. You just kind of piece things together. So we have this opportunity to put together a bonding package where we can fix about $84 million right there. About $84 million of our streets and our sidewalks. So this is what the mayor will bring to us tonight. And again, so good to see you all coming out. And this is something that I hope that you all will be able to support. Mr. Mayor, over to you.
Thank you, Councilman Shine. I want to thank you for coming out tonight and being with us here in your district. I want to thank all of you all for taking time off from what I know otherwise busy schedules and coming out to be a part of having this chance for me to come and to share with you information that we are sharing with our city council, and we're sharing with other folks from all across the city of Shreveport. On Monday night, we were down at the municipal auditorium and had a chance to be able to talk about this, along with some other things that are happening with that particular area of the city that ends up having an impact and effect on us all. On next Thursday, a week from today, we'll be over at the Randall T. Moore Center, where we'll share some information about this same situation and challenge with the folks in that part of town. But my message is that what impacts and affects Shreveport in one area impacts all of Shreveport. So thank you for being here tonight. If you want to come next Thursday, I would welcome you then. And we'll even have a meeting on Wednesday of next week with members of a group called the Community Advisory Group, work with us on our master planning effort that we've been working on for the last several years, that was officially adopted by the Shreveport City Council and by the Parish Commission, and that represents a part of the roadmap that we're utilizing to try and chart a better course for Shreveport and for Caddo Parish. I also want to recognize and thank your state representative, my state representative, and good friend Barbara Norton for being here tonight. We appreciate you as well. Thank you. I also have to pay honor and recognition to the brother, I don't know if he's the younger brother or the older brother, of one of the men who was like a second father to me as a, I can't say little, because I was never really little, I was young.
There you go, man.
Young boy, a little boy, up at the Lanier.
Y'all see our size.
I was at the Lanier Junior High School back in the late 70s. And Mr. Walter White was a great educator, outstanding principal, but he was an even better man. He helped to shape and to mold impressionable young folks like myself. And I tell people if I stand tall and I look feel like it was the president of the Moortown Advisory Council. I want to thank you for allowing us to come and meet with your usual meeting location. We thought that this would be a good place, a good park, but everybody would know how to find. You even have to drive on some bad streets to get here. So you understand exactly the situation of the problem that we face. I know I see Ms. Linda Scott and others who are part of various neighborhood groups from around the area. I want to thank you all for being here. And again, this is all about an effort to try and inform and educate the community about the issues that we are facing with regard to our streets across this city. And I know that I've been honored to be an elected official for over 20 years now. Starting off as a city council member for District 8, going from there to the state legislature, House District 4, for almost 12 years, and now in the 5th year as your mayor. And one of the most consistent questions, challenges that I've been given is what are you going to do about the streets? And you all know that we started this bond issue process year before last, talking about the capital infrastructure needs of the city of Shreveport and what we're going to do about it. And frankly, based upon the information that we knew at that time regarding some upcoming challenges that we're going to have with regard to our sewer system, some of the problems that we got with regard to our water system, we knew that we had to spend a good deal of money in places where people wouldn't see it, and that's underground, and that's not politically popular. So those kind of issues end up being kicked down the road because as elected officials, we like to see things or do things that people can see.
That's right.
As Joe shared with me when I started 20 years ago, they can't roll up a new street.
Hey,
They may eliminate a program, or they may eliminate a job, but once that street is built, once that structure is built, it ends up being there. And so we understood that as we went through that process with the Citizens Committee, and there were 16 of your fellow citizens from across the city of Shreveport who came together and heard that there was over $500 million worth of needs. They talked about also how much our bonding capacity can be without having to raise taxes. They initially thought that they would end up with a bond proposal that would be somewhere around $115 to $120 to $25 million. They ultimately ended up understanding that they needed to have a proposal that they initially recommended to the city and to the city council of $165 million. Now, one of the problems with that is that it's spent almost $100 million on the sewer system, on the water system, a little bit on the drainage system, some for our public buildings and for our parks, which is needed as well. But it also only had $4 million. $4 million to fix the streets. Now, we knew that that was a problem. Well, thankfully, to the 5 new members who joined Councilman Shine in this new council, they took that proposal, they got into it with both feet, joined me on a citywide tour. We got on a city bus and we went and looked at the various challenges from streets to sewer, to water, to public buildings, to parks and what have you. They decided that that particular package needed to be upped by about $10 million. They reshifted some money down and ended up coming up with about $21 million in uncommitted dollars that could go towards street profit. That breaks down to about $3 million per district. Now, within that overall bond package, there's about $44 million in total dollars that will go towards streets and drainage. Let me break that down to you. As I said, $21 million that these council members will decide where that money ends up being spent. You've got another $10.7 million that's scheduled to be spent from the only specifically identified street project in the whole bond issue. And that's a new Knight Street off of Shreveport Barscale that will go out to Preston Road and Clyde Frank Parkway. Those of you who've been out there, you see that new building that's coming up. That's the new regional headquarters for Petrol Home. And so the Citizens Committee believe that based on the condition of that road and the infusion of those jobs and what it represents in terms of the economic future, they wanted to identify that as one of the streets. You had another project, a $2.2 million project to rebuild the bridge on Stoner right there by the Sun Furniture Building. It doesn't look too bad on the surface, but underneath it's got some real problems. And so before we end up with a collapse there, we figured that needed to be replaced. There's $3 million in that particular bond package that's dedicated towards fixing sidewalks all across the city of Shreveport. But as you'll see from the proposal that's up here, that $3 million is only a part of an overall $12 million problem. And so you spend that $3 million, you still got $9–10 million worth of work still to be done. And then once you spend all of that money, you still got over $87 million worth of street projects here in the city of Shreveport that have been on a list compiled from coming out to meetings just like this one, all across the city of Shreveport. Neighborhood meetings, complaints that you all have made, input from council members that listed over 15 years long, old rather, and it's got $87 million for streets. And we've got no answer as to how we're going to fix. Those streets are broken down into what are called arterials. An arterial would be like Jewel or Hollywood. They are the main streets that we all drive on. Whether you are from Cook Road or Ingleside or Hollywood or Moortown, at some point you all end up on these main streets that move us back and forth. The next level are collectives. Those are the streets within our neighborhoods that feed from the residential streets. Broadway is a good example of a collective. Exactly. Councilman Shine was a civics teacher and a history teacher, so he appreciate that point. That's a classic example of a collective, is Broadway. And then you have the residential streets that need repair. That's $87+ million. Now, the next level is that you have got, at this point, $79 million worth of work to be done for what they call concrete panel replacement. And that's where you see those broken, cracked up sections of the road that need to be taken out in whole and then replaced and relaid. You got some of that work going on right now here on Jewella and across some other parts of the city of Shreveport. That's what you can do if you're in a position to be able to do that before you get to a point where up to 50% or more of the panels need to be replaced. And once you need 50% or more, at that point, the whole street needs to be replaced. So there's $79 million of worth of that work that needs to be done. That up to this point, in all the years I've spent in government, that we've never come up with a real solution or strategy on how to address. In addition to that, we've got a lot of streets here across the city that are asphalt. We've got about a $7 million problem when it comes to asphalt streets. Right now, we only spend about $750,000 per year, about 10% towards trying to address the overall problem when it comes to asphalt streets. What we're proposing is that we take a bold strategy and take a big step towards fixing the problem. And that's why we want to ask you all to help us to fix Shreveport Streets now. Now, as I said, we've got a current $87 million backlog. Streets that 50% of the panels that need to be replaced, we end up having to replace the whole street. You can see what kind of condition those streets are in. We want to put in place a citywide street program. One of the ways in which we refer to it within City Hall that we call it SPEED. It stands for street projects in each and every district. This is one that not all on the east side, and not all on the north side, and not all on the west side. It's about all of the city of Shreveport, citywide. And you can see, it could be any one of them. I can't tell you which one it is. We just went out, we just took pictures. We didn't have to go too far. Everywhere we went, you know. That could be my mama's street right there. That's Hershey Wilson. That ain't far from my mama's house. There's all kinds of just, see, those are problems that as we fail to come up with a solution for how we're going to fix, it becomes more and more expensive because the damage becomes greater. The cost of concrete and steel and rebar, our good friends over in China right now, are biggest consumers on the earth right now, and as much as they consume, that means the price of everything else that we have to buy over here continues to go up. But all over the city of Shreveport. And see, I wanted to include these pictures for you all because there are some folks who ask, well, man, we just passed the largest bond issue in the history of the city. Why are we going to do this now? Why won't we just wait a while? Why don't we go ahead and allow that 21 million that the council got to go ahead and spend, and then once we've done that, then we'll come back and decide whether or not we're going to do something else. And my response to that is if you drive on streets that look like that, you know they're not going to fix themselves. 2 years from now, it's going to cost more to fix it than it does today. You got the availability to be able to do it in a way that makes sense. Why would you ask me to wait?
Tell me, doesn't a mechanic call?
Well, here's what I want you all to know. It costs you, here in the city of Shreveport, it costs you an average of an additional $537 per year on repairs to your car based upon the damage that's done from driving on the streets of Shreveport. And unfortunately, you can't send us the bill. The sidewalk situation. Current backlog of $12,579,530 worth of work that needs to be done. We right now have $3 million that's in the bond issue. You do that, you still got almost $10 million worth of work that still needs to be done. What we're proposing, not a complete solution, but it gives us an additional $2 million that even goes towards that problem. Those are what sidewalks look like all across the city of Shreveport. All across the city. We come out and we pitch and we patch and we do a little bit. We show up at these meetings. We hear you all complain and tell us, do something, do something. Squeaky wheel gets a little squeaky, and we come back and we do a little bit. But it still doesn't go about fixing the problem. We got bridges, as I mentioned earlier, not just the one on Stoneham, but others across the city that have got work that needs to be done before they end up getting in too bad and too poor of a condition. We're asking that we take $1 million from this initiative and we put it into helping to do repair work and upgrade work on our bridges. Just give you an idea of what some of that looks like underneath some of those structures that we drive over every day. It's kind of like a lot of things. It may look good on the surface, but if you really want to know the real condition that it's in, you got to get up under it on the inside. You see that all of what may look good can be just simply a facade, and the rest of it is looking to collapse. We want to make sure that we get out in front and stay out in front. You got some situations in the state of Louisiana that have been so neglected for so long. My good friend, Kim Holt, we served together in the legislature. The House, when I got there, they ended up going to the Senate, he's now there in Baton Rouge. They've not yet been able to come up with a consensus on how to address some of the infrastructural issues that they have, like bridges in Baton Rouge. So now, as mayor, he is ordering bridges to be shut down, to be closed to traffic, because he doesn't want to have the city to be responsible for the liability that would incur that once you know that they are no longer safe. When somebody ends up falling and collapsing and hurting or killing themselves, then the liability for the city becomes even greater. So in order to avoid that responsibility, that liability, they are shutting down bridges. Now what that means is that you end up shutting off neighborhoods, taking a bad traffic situation like Baton Rouge and making it worse. We don't want to do that here in Shreveport. You also know that all across the city of Shreveport, you got broken up medians, cracked up medians that just look bad, they're dirty, they're matted, just does not end up making the city a safe or attractive place. We got no money in the budget right now, none, to address any of these types of important issues all across the city. We're proposing to put at least $1.5 million into that addition so that we can come back and clean up and straighten up and make the city safer by allowing these things to end up being what they need to be in terms of our road system. Also, intersection improvements. We've got intersections in this city that are too narrow for some of our buses to turn around in. We've got intersections in this city that are too narrow to be able to allow cars to effectively turn. And so one of the things that we want to do is to add at least $1 million where we can go and certain selected places that have been identified across the city, be able to add an additional turn lane where it's needed, so you can be able to see traffic move easier, that you don't end up with cars having to back up when the sport train bus begins to make a turn through the intersection. This is a classic example of one right here. If you look here on the left-hand side, and this is right there at Jewella and Hollywood, a stretch of road that's still real bad, that needs a whole bunch of work. But if you'll see here on the left, we don't have that right turn lane that takes you onto Hollywood. On the right-hand side, you can see where we went in and widened that intersection and put in that right turn lane to be able to allow traffic to be able to flow easier and better. We need to do more of that all across the city of Shreveport. As I mentioned, we got an $87 million list of street projects that, with what we're proposing, we would do every street on that list. All right? Every street on that list would be completely done. Now, we also have $79 million worth of concrete panels that need to be replaced.
Something like we're doing on Jewella.
That's like we're doing on Jewella right now. Right now, this program that I'm offering, that Councilman Shine is supporting, and we're asking at least 3 other members of the council to vote with him on, would provide us an additional $13 million to go towards that $79 million in concrete panel replacement that needs to be done all across the city of Shreveport. Now, why is that significant? Because right now, in the current budget, and the budget that we've had since I've been mayor, and for years, we budgeted $500,000 to do that work for the entirety of the city of Shreveport. That $500,000 breaks out to, because each one of those panels you see replaced averages about $3,800 in cost. About $3,800 in cost. That's how much it costs us to get those replaced. Now, when you take $500,000 and divide it by $3,800, I good to dear junior high school math tells me that's 91. You take 91 concrete panels, just like the ones you see being replaced. That's what you do all across the whole city for the whole year. For the whole year. If you divide that by 7, that gives Councilman Shine about 12 for his district.
I know we spent that already.
For the whole district. With that additional $13 million that we would have available through what we're proposing, you would be able to do almost 4,000 panels all across the city of Shreveport. That would be almost 500-600 per council district. So you end up being able to do real work that makes a real difference for the city of Shreveport. And you see right now when we don't have the resources to come and actually replace the panel, in order to just try and make the driving surface a little smoother, we end up coming in and putting in that asphalt mix. That's kind of like oil and water. It doesn't mix. It doesn't stay. It's not going to last. You know, but it's better than hitting a 6-inch rise in the road because the concrete doesn't sit there. So we just trying to smooth it out. With this particular proposal, Fix Our Streets Now, we'd be able to spend $13 million clearing thousands and thousands of needed panel replacements all across the city of Shreveport. You can see here, other examples. Broken concrete with asphalt, just trying to smooth it out. All across. Now, we also recognize that there are a substantial number of streets across the city that are asphalt, especially within our neighborhoods. We're not going to ignore that either. But we also recognize that the only way in which we can manage to be able to direct monies towards repairing those main arterials like Hollywood and Jewella and these other major streets is to be able to have enough money all at the same time to be able to go out and do the project overall, not just paying a little bit as you go, all right? But because we can now, instead of having to do the $500,000 that we utilize right now for panel replacement, we can take that $500,000 and add it to the $750,000 that we currently budget each year for asphalt overlay, and we'll increase the asphalt overlay budget by over 66%. By increasing that asphalt overlay budget by over 66%, we've got a current $7.1 billion backlog of asphalt streets that need to be done. That new budget is $1.25 billion. In 5 years, 2 years after I'm no longer mayor of the city of Shreveport, but after 5 years, we will have done 90% of that $7 million worth of backlog asphalt streets that need to be done. So not only do we get a significant amount of concrete work that needs to be done on our major arterials, we get significant work done on our collectors, we get significant amounts of work done on our residential neighborhood streets. We managed to be able to repair more sidewalks at one time than we ever have in the history of the city of Shreveport, and we have a record increase in the asphalt overlay budget that gives us a plan that allows us to be able to chip 90+% off of our current problem. Just an example of some of our asphalt streets across the city that need to be fixed. Now, the question is, bottom line, how long are we going to make you wait? How long are we going to make you wait? Now, why are we in a position to be able to do this? Here's why. City of Shreveport, thank you for the vote. City of Shreveport was the last major city across the state of Louisiana to do something that the Louisiana legislature, Representative Norton and her colleagues, allowed other cities to be able to do. And that is to increase what's called the franchise fee on your utility bills from 2% to 5%. Bossier did it months ago. New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Alexandria, Lake Charles, Monroe, they increased it, and they increased it and took the extra money and just folded it right into their budgets. I can't blame them. Cities right now strapped. Sales taxes are lower in some instances. Property values are diminishing. The economy, we got a problem. And so you got cities that have had to lay off police officers, firefighters, other workers, and what have you. So they just take that money and just put it right into their general fund. But this administration, this council, said that if we're going to entertain the notion of increasing our franchise fee, then we need to come up with a specific identified purpose to allow us to be able to address some long-standing significant problem for our city. And so between Councilman Shine and Councilman Sam Jenkins and Councilman McCullough and myself and others, we came up and said, look, let's not just dedicate this new revenue, which comes out to be $6 million per year. Let's not just dedicate this revenue towards fixing our streets. Let's dedicate it and leverage it, which means we use it as a revenue stream. But over the length of the franchise agreement, which is 25 years, if we pledge that revenue, just like a mortgage, you want to go buy a $150,000 house, $200,000 house. Most of us don't have $150,000 to go write a check and go get that house. But we do know that we can put away $700 a month, $800, $1,000, $1,200 a month, that we can pay down $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, and the bank will do what? Go with us to the mortgage company, give us the money. We pay that to the person who's selling the home or who built the house. We've got the house, we live in the house, and we've got a better home. I'll put it to you another way. Your roof needs to be repaired. That's a $5,000 job. You've got to raise or $5,000 job to fix your roof. You've got to raise on your job that's going to pay you an extra $250 a month. Now you can pay as you go to fix your roof, which means every month you go and you spend $250 patching on it. But then comes the next rainstorm, you get water back into your house, the wood getting rotten, drywall getting soaked, and by the time you get to where you can fix that whole roof at $250 a month, the house ain't worth living in. Or you could go to your bank, to your credit union, and say, look, I'm going to give you $250 a month, but I need you to come fix my roof and fix the whole roof. And you manage to be able to safeguard your investment, add value to it, take care of a problem that needs to be taken care of, and because you've got the new revenue coming in, it's not costing you. You're not taking money from your children's education, you're not taking money from your mortgage, you're not taking money from your car note, you're dedicating a specific new stream of revenue to a much needed purpose that's going to make your home a much better place to be. That's essentially what we're asking you all to do here. Now, why are we in a position to be able to do it? Because despite what you heard back in 2006, when I was running for mayor, well, it might have been 2 years ago. City of Shreveport had a bunch of problems financially. But we managed to be able to bring in a team of folks led by a fellow by the name of Calvin Grigsby, who's the city's financial advisor, Jacqueline Scott, one of our local attorneys who's a part of our bond team, Shante Wells and Alex Washington, who are part of our bond team as well, a local young girl by the name of Shreveport Fields, who's a seminary graduate, went to Huntington High School, had a 3.7 grade on average in finance, who now works as the local representative for Calvin Grigsby and Associates. They looked at all of the bad debt that we had, and they helped us to rework it and to restructure it and to refinance it to where now we have some of the most historic lows in terms of overall debt in the history of the city of Shreveport. Our per capita debt is about $2,000 or $3,000 per person less than the city of Bossier City. We're comparable to Baton Rouge. We just went to New York City back in May of this year to meet with our bond raters. We've had the city's A+ bond rating affirmed, and because of the outstanding leadership that's been shown, not just by my staff, but by the professionals that we brought on board, we had our management practice upgraded from standard to good. And we're poised to be in a position to go out and get an actual upgrade to a higher rating the next time that we visit them. So despite all of the trepidations, people who thought that the city was about to fall off into a black hole of sorts, who thought that we'd be, down there laying off people and, the whole 9 yards, and the buses wouldn't run on time, and the police wouldn't show up when you called them, and the firefighters wouldn't have water in the hoses and what have you. We're actually doing pretty well. And because of that, we now have the opportunity to be able to address a problem that the only thing we're saying is let's not kick it any further down the street. Now, what's one of the other good things about what we're proposing here today? This is the kind of work, repairing of our streets, the fixing of our sidewalks, that gives us a chance to be able to see a significant number of our local fair share, disadvantaged and minority-owned businesses to participate in the work that's being proposed here. We have a 25% fair share program for all the work the city of Shreveport does. There's no reason as to why every aspect of this $100+ million worth of work would not be fair share compliant. As long as I'm your mayor, I can assure you that we're going to push and press to make sure that that happens. So you got companies right out here within this area like Horton Construction and Henderson Construction and others who do this kind of work all day long. Wimbledon Construction and others. And what's good about this is that it also has the impact of putting people back to work. Because one of the initial arguments that was made against what we're proposing here was we don't have the capacity to be able to do that much work. There's not enough contractors. And so I went and talked to the contractor directly themselves. Went and met with them. And they told me, they said, Cedric, I'm going to tell it to you straight. We got people who call us every day. Some at home, looking for work. Others are working jobs that don't pay them as much as they pay when they work for us, looking for an opportunity to be able to go back to work. We can assure you that the city of Shreveport moves forward with this effort, that you're going to have more than enough contractors who are going to be willing to step forward and come in and put in good competitive bids. So that means we're going to end up being able to give even a bigger and better and greater value for what we're proposing. Now, we had this up for a vote 2 weeks ago this past year, and made a decision based on the fact that they had some folks who had said they were in support of it, but weren't quite sure because they were getting pressure from all kinds of different sources. You know, people who come with all kinds of reasons. And some folks say I'm talking about fixing our streets because I want to run for Congress. You know, some people say I'm doing this because I want to go out and see contractors going and get jobs and doing business. But now, I tell you, out of those two statements, ain't but one of them true. I'm not running for Congress, but I do want to see our local companies have a chance to be able to come and do work and put people to work. But that's been one of our primary focus since I've been mayor of the city of Shreveport. And while things are not perfect, we have an unemployment rate right now in Shreveport that's 7.9% compared to a 9.7% rate for the rest of the country, the rest of the state. I want to thank Councilman Shine and Mr. White and others of you who helped us to effectively secure what's going to be over 200 jobs that's coming in across the street over here. Representative Norton as well, with the Weatherford Company. Good quality jobs. The ownership and management of which stood right here in this room and met with the people of this neighborhood before one step of work was done across the street to make sure maybe we're going to entertain the workers once we get wrapped up. But definitely welcome your question. Thank you, sir. Looking forward to it. Thank you. And so we want to be in a position to say, let's not continue to push the can down the road. Let's not continue to delay what needs to be done. Let's not come up with excuse after excuse, you know, allegation after allegation. The bottom line of it is, this is the plan that we have come up with, that we proposed, and we've not seen, and Councilman Shine, you can tell me, somebody else may have come up with another one, but we've not seen anybody else's plan. This does more towards fixing streets at one single time than any other initiative ever in the history of the city of Shreveport. We've got a chance to do it. Won't be an increase in our general obligation bonding capacity, so we have to go back and have some additional work to be done there. We're not touching it. We're not increasing any of our taxes in any way. So there's not a tax increase. That increase in your franchise fee is one that is actually spread out throughout the entirety of the service area, so that until we increase ours, we were already helping to pay for Bossier and the others throughout the Shreveport service area. What do I mean by that? That means that the franchise fee is paid in two ways. It's split in half. You pay one half of that additional 3% directly The other 1.5% is spread out throughout all 40,000 Shreveport customers throughout this region. So that means that when Bossier raised theirs, Bossier folks paid directly for half of it. But the other half ended up appearing as a part of your utility bill. Now, my thing is, by the time them help start paying for some items. And now that we've got a chance to be able to take that revenue stream, use it to leverage an additional $85+ million, add that to the existing money that's available to us from the bond issue from April, and we end up doing $87 million of street work across the city, $13 million worth of panel work across the city. We do $2 million more worth of sidewalk work. We do $1 million worth of bridge work. We do $1.5 million worth of curb and median repair. We do $1 million worth of intersection work. We do $500,000 for a pavement inventorying system. We put ourselves in a position to see the quality of the infrastructure of our city improve in a way that we've never seen in this short of a period of time ever in the city district. Now, all I know is I believe that this is what you elected us to come down and say all to do. I heard from every corner of the city, fix our streets. We started with crime, trying to make our neighborhood better and safer. We worked to bring jobs, worked to help the film industry come here. Over 100 films made in the last 4 years. We got the energy sector coming here in a way that's never been done before. We're addressing out in front of the Department of Justice and the EPA on the sanitary sewer issue. We're improving the quality of our water system. Now is the time to fix our streets. All we need is a 4-vote majority of the city council, and with that, we're in a position to be able to move forward. Now, I'm coming here today as your mayor, glad to be here standing with your council member to ask you all to help us send that message to our city council that we need to step up and fix Shreveport Streets Now. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm glad to answer.
Everybody in the room, your councilman is for this. Your councilman is for this. But if some of y'all, Mr. White, would write the Shreveport Times, Ms. Scott, represent your organization to let them know that this is needed and to help us get that other vote that we need. We've got to have that other vote. Now, if we don't have that other vote, everything the mayor has said up here, right, won't be done. You will still have your bad streets. So we need that other vote. We need you to write the Shreveport Times and let them know so that they will publish your articles. Have y'all noticed in the paper where they publish articles from citizens? That's what we need. Don't y'all think the mayor has done a good job tonight? And this is something that we need. I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor for any questions and answers that you all want.
Thank you, Councilman John. And the councilman's correct. He has been one of the folks who helped to stand up for this level, understand it, appreciate it, and is willing to make that known. And in fact, I also want to thank him for that suggestion that you all helped to communicate to the council and to the various folks within the legislative level of government that this is something that you guys see and have some value. I want to also thank NAACP President Lloyd Thompson, who this past Sunday started that trend, Councilman, and wrote an outstanding letter that was published in the paper. that outlines exactly his sentiments and the sentiments of the organization in this regard. And certainly, any of you all are welcome to do the same, and even to call your respective council members, and even those who are not your council members, to let them know that this is something that has an impact and effect on all the city streets. The only thing that we've heard as any kind of an alternative scenario in this situation would be to take the money and just split up amongst each of the council districts. Now, if you did that, you wouldn't be able to do anything other than just kind of see it, just kind of feel away. You know, it's kind of like the old African proverb that says, you know, you take one stick and you can break it pretty easily, but you take a group of sticks and bundle them together, and there's strength in that unity. This is a situation where the city of Shreveport doesn't need to separate, divide itself, and see this money trickle away and end up being lost without having the kind of significant substantive impact that it needs to have. We need to come together, bound ourselves together, and be strong, and actually be able to do something that will be greatly significant on the city of Shreveport. So at this point, we're going to open it up for questions. We're going to start over here with good Mr. Mays. Mays here.
Yes,
and we got a microphone for him. That's how we're going to make sure.
This time what you call me at the council meeting when I speak up for individuals. Most of these people in this room know me. I'm Pastor Mays. My father was Dick Carter. My uncle was CEO Carter, who pastored for over 40-some years. I was raised here on Faith Street. My question to you is that, and I'm hoping that's not an ignorant question. My question to you is that you knew when you first came to these people, that's why the room is not full tonight, because we let people know that what you're trying to do is unethical. You knew when you first came and asked for $175 million. You knew from the beginning that that would not be a sufficient amount to do the work that needs to be done throughout this city for as these streets that you're talking about. The sad part about it, Mayor Glover, is that you asking the taxpayers of this city for another $94 million. And you know who pocket they're going to come out of? Out of these individuals that sit in this room. The reason why people are not here tonight, because they're not going to support it. The city council is not going to support it. That's the reason why I appreciate you very much for this time. You are trying to bring it to the public and sell it, but ain't nobody buying it. The sad part about it is that the streets are in this condition, but you have been a city councilman, you have been a mayor, you have sat on the state legislative branch, and our streets been in these horrible conditions. So the sad part about it is it happened on your watch. So now, to me, these good people are here in Moortown already is out of enough money, and now there's some more money finna be taken out of their pockets, and their streets and stuff is still going to remain the same. Instead of this was the sale, the first sale, but people are not buying anymore. This was the first sale. The first sale was, I tell you what, we're going to allow SWEPCO, we're going to take a little money out of your electric bills, and we're going to take that money and allocate it towards streets and drainage. So the hustle has been the same all the time. I'm a pastor and been a pastor for years. I'm not buying it. No other pastor is buying it. And whoever buying it is wishful thinking. It's not going to happen, Mr. Glover, Mayor Glover, because it's sad. And I'm going to conclude with this. Do the paperwork. Put the pen in the paper. You all knew this when you first came to the public, asking for the largest bond proposal that had been proposed throughout this city. So we will not, people in Moortown ain't going to let you as the mayor or anybody else, city councilman or anybody else, bankrupt the city of Shreveport and leave us in an almost $1 billion when it's all over with, said and done, when you leave office, and leave this city in a synecdoche, in a large debt that we just want to have. I'm going to pass it on to somebody else, but I'm just telling you, it's not going to happen.
I'm not sure what the question was.
Okay. This is the question. The question is, this is the question. about your cheering crowd. But the question is this, is that you knew that the amount of money that you paid to the city first with would not be the sufficient amount needed to do the work that needed to be done. So you played on the people by saying, we're going to take this amount and put it toward streets and drainage. Therefore, so you can come back, this is the question, what you're doing now. Therefore, you can come back and ask for $94 million more and think that everybody will buy into it. Why the council ain't buying into it? That's the question.
Thank you, Pastor Mays. I'm going to ask you a question and respond to your statement this way. And that is one of the things that a wise man taught me, that helped me throughout the last 20 plus years of my life, was that some, they talked about Jesus Christ. So what makes you think they're not going to talk about you? You know, so if they talk about you, most times don't like you, don't love you. But maybe I know you in that category. I understand that. And I appreciate that, I respect that. But here's what I want you to understand.
It's not like your principles.
And that is that whomever it is that you go out and sit with and let them, you know, tutor you.
Yeah, you can't play yourself.
These things that you come here trying.
And that's why the room is not full.
And,
Because you're not going to
you know, try and establish an argument with them. You need to let them, you know, keep you a little longer in class. So that you can have, you know, at the beginning of this presentation, the $175 million bond issue was the largest in the city's history. It was compiled by your fellow citizens, by our fellow citizens. 2 from each council district, 2 that I recommended as mayor. Those individuals looked at over $500 million worth of projects that needed to be done across the city of Shreveport. They knew that they could not come up with a complete solution. As your mayor, I'm not going to fix every problem, but you do the best that you can for the most that you can, when you can. And that's what we're here trying to do. Now, you continue to show up. I'm going to continue to show up. And you know, we're going to keep going on. And so, I love you because God loves you. Amen.
And the feelings
we're going to go to the
just don't like your policy.
Thank you, John. No. We're going to let it go. Who's out there? All right. This gentleman right here, then we're going to the back.
Thank you, sir. My question is, who determines what grade of concrete we use on these streets? How thick is the pole? Then, who determines how thick we hold the overlay on the asphalt? And as far as the sidewalk, are we reballing the sidewalks when we form? And a lot of these streets, I understand they shift because the earth shift. Concrete don't really shift because it's solid. But if we're using the right grade of concrete and the right rebar set, it won't do that. And I just want to know who determines that.
Well, that's an excellent question.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
One more thing. Sure. These streets was messed up long before. I lived here in 1998. I mean 1980. These streets was messed up. I don't like to see people blame another person for something like that. High Tower, the one before High Tower, never had these streets messed up. Now you want to talk about bad issues? That's what we need to go get about the bad issues. But I appreciate you going on and fixing this because that was really one of my problems. I really was pissed off, sir. Because I had tore my front end up on the repair shop. These people's front ends are torn, but now I see the way they're doing it. That's fine. But I just want to know who's doing the inspection on the streets once they're repaired, because they're breaking down.
Excellent question. And this fellow right here, the city engineer, the reason why his back is swayed is because I ride it. In fact, as we've had these discussions, that's part of the question I ask, is what is it that we need to make sure that we do going forward? I'm not going to go back and try and convict the people who came before me, because I can't do that. All I know is that this work, I want to make sure that it ends up being done the right and correct way. That we need to make sure that we are doing it according to the proper code and standards, that we are accounting for areas that have bad soil composition, like up where I'm from, on the north side of town, Cook Road, all a bunch of clay, and so when you build a road or a street or a house, you got to account for that. Otherwise, come the rain, come the sun, and the stretch, and what have you, things gonna move and crack. And so going forward, that's gonna be a big part of what we do. I'm gonna let them speak and address that specifically. Ron Norwood is the city engineer, but then also you all need to meet, because I think this is his first time here. The city's new public works director, Mr. Stan Harris, who's here. The good thing about Mr. Harris is that he used to be a city engineer. And so he's also in this, so we double engineered up now. All right? And Mr. Harris came to Shreveport from Kansas City, Missouri, where he was the public works director of Kansas City. Spent 26 plus years working in for the city of Kansas City, the last 5.5 as their director of public works. I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm trying to talk anybody's business. But he took about a $35,000 pay cut to come to Shreveport.
Now that was because the septic told him that we serve good food down here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Y'all see him, don't you?
I hadn't talked that well since I convinced my wife to marry. And we got it not because they were trying to run it, not because they were trying to run by Kansas City. But he's here now with his expertise, his knowledge, and his background. So between the two of these gentlemen and other folks that work for him, we're going to get some good work done. So I'll let y'all address the specifics with regard to the standards and whatever about which we go our road.
Thank you, Mayor. Just between Stan and I, we are going to get this done and get it done right. I'm Ron Norwood, city engineer. Stan Harris is public works director. The mayor has made it extremely clear to both of us that these are going to be done according to city standards. They'll be inspected by our staff, and we will assure you that there will be good streets and sidewalks and infrastructure when they're complete.
That works fine.
I have one question.
Derek, you want to introduce yourself as well?
As the mayor has indicated, my name is Stan Harris. I'm the new director of public works. I'm certainly glad to be here. We talk about streets in Kansas City, clay streets. That's all we have in Kansas City is clay streets. Our street basins are all clay. So I'd be more than happy to work with Ron and see if we can't work out something to make it work here in Shreveport. So we can make it work. I know we can do it everywhere else.
And the specific issue about the rebar and the sidewalks, I don't know. I don't think we do that now.
No, we don't, but let me say something that Stan just mentioned. He'd be more than happy to work with me. I'm going to depend on him when we do this program. I'm going to depend on his expertise. Between the two of us, we'll get you a good product.
One other question, sir. Do we all
Just get the microphone, but we don't want to.
Come on, boy. Would y'all accept advice from someone that really doesn't work for the city, but I'm a specialist in this? I used to work for a casino doing this. We blew them up and we built it. And that was my reason for that question. I just like to, these streets really need to be built more stabilized.
And let me answer by saying we are open to any constructive advice from anybody.
Absolutely.
We're not so proud as to think we have all the answers.
Okay. We do not. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, call me next on the next question.
There you go. All right, there we go. I was looking for you over here. You didn't go.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. My name is Irvin Foster. My
father was Clovis Foster Money, the reason why they take us here in this very funeral home in which we stand. My family dates all the way back to C.C. Antoine and legislative construction. Councilman Stein, I even understood it with the first city councilman from District of Herman Ford, you might have known him, and my sister Jill, Bonnie Foster Jackson, 19 coming Port Baton Rouge. But I wanted to say to the mayor, you remember back in Operation Thor when they said the killing would never stop every night after night in Shreveport. I just wanted to say to you, when you get all this garbage being incurred, remember the same God that delivered you to that situation will continue to deliver. You're giving it to us, we're going to take it and trust you for what you're worth. We put you in this place, we're going to trust you to do what you say.
God bless you.
Now, first start to mention that there was opponents on the city council of your plan. Who are those opponents, and who do we need to, those persons we identified, that's what I need to who are opposed?
I'm going to let council speak to council now.
Yeah, we have 3 council members. I don't want to really call any names. Now, what I'm about to say, I don't like calling names of people who are not here in the meeting. Because I wouldn't want anybody to do me like that. Right. If you understand what I'm saying. But, and that's why I don't want the mayor to get involved in it, because it gets to be a hot political issue down on the council. And a lot of times you get more done with honey than you can with vinegar. Right. If you understand what I'm saying. We're working hard to try to get those 3. One council member is kind of on the hot seat in the middle. And that's why I said, now what you can do is write to the Shreveport Times. I don't know whether you noticed the Shreveport Times came out with an editorial against it, but you know, they do against a lot of things that they don't understand. And the Committee of 100, who I don't believe any of them live in our district. I mean, not in this district, who have sent me letters and called me and all this other stuff. But see, they don't elect me, if you understand what I'm saying, and they don't put food on my table. So I don't want to call the names of the other city council members, but this is the way I do it. Councilman McCullough's for it. Councilman Jenkins is for it. Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Councilman Sam Jenkins. Councilman Sam Jenkins is for it. And Councilman Joe Shine is for it. Now, after the meeting, if you want me to give you the name of those other folks, I'll be more than happy to do it. But I just, but you know, you get more done with honey. I learned that from my mom and dad a long time ago than you do with vinegar. And we have to work with those people down there. This isn't the last issue that's going to come up. And we have to work with. And I'm the son of a preacher, because they said preacher's sons are bad, but they're really not. And I want to show some Christian. I want to show my Christianity by working with these other people. So that's why I don't want to call their names, and that's why I don't want the mayor to call their name. Because one, in the council meeting the other day, it just shocked me, and I thought the mayor was going to fall out of his seat. He hollered, the mayor was trying to explain something, and he hollered and told him, "You lying!" We've never had that to happen. And I thought the mayor was going to fuck that. How did you sit up in your seat? I don't know how he did it. Not only once, but twice. And I'm glad it was the mayor, because if it had been me, I might have forgotten my Christian upbringing at that time. I might have said something back. So this is why we want to try to do this with as much honey as we can, because we try to work together down there. Now, although, you know, we disagree on things, but we try to work together. That's why I don't want the man, I don't want to call any names, but if you get me after the meeting, I'll be glad to tell you. You know, and I'll tell you when you come down and see him.
Well done, Councilman Shaw. Extremely well done. All right, now we got
My name
My name is Charles Skillion. I grew up right back in Wartown, elementary school back then. I made myself a professional athlete. That was my job. Now I can't play no more. I'm getting all this what we have here. Out of the streets and fixing right now. Need to be fixed up. So I can't bring none of my friends down. So I got a golf tournament to fix down. I'm having, I got my own non-organization. I'm getting things, I want to get things done. Because Mel, I've been doing it for years. He getting it done. He getting it done. And just like my owner, he passed away from nowadays. I think we can't open radio. So I want my street, I want my city to look good. When I bring my friends here, they're going to say, we have the street. I want to see that. I want them to look at that. So that's what I want. Now, I've been thinking about these streets all the time. But now, we got to get it done. We want to get it done. So I'm going to write. I'm get my hand. I had surgery. I already had surgery because this was my football career. So I want to do this. I like it. And I want to bring my friends. I'm going to Houston to my interview. I'm doing my chapel. I'm going to a golf tournament. And we got a banquet for kids down there. I'm having the scholarship on them doing that for next year. Because we got to have our city look good for everybody. And them streets, that's what they got to have the streets done. So this is good. And I'm all for it. Because I'm definitely all for it. They're going to hear me. I'm having my friends down here too. They're going to hear them. They're going to come over here from Houston. And all over. They got from Oakland too. They want to come. Al Davis, he passed away this past week. But I get all my friends. I get to come down here. I want my streets to look good. And this is what happened. I like it. And I'm all for it.
I know it's been a rough week on you and all of the Raider Nation, the loss of Al Davis.
Now we got one more.
Absolutely, we won't get everybody. Also, he didn't just play football. He was a Super Bowl champion. Defensive end for Oakland Raiders.
From Shreveport.
Yeah, right here.
Who was our next?
With the red on that.
With the red right here? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, how you doing, Mayor? My name is Bill Sparkins, and I don't know the sideline now, but I wanted to ask if, at once when you proposed our garbage pickup, you had the idea, or you put it out there that we would keep the trash cans off of the street and bring them in and out. And I wonder if you ever thought about have somebody to go around and check these streets out. That's the job that they do, and just see who's leaving their trash cans out on the street and not picking them up and taking them whole additional fines on them instead of, I don't mind paying the $250 or whatever, but there are some people that's definitely not abiding by the system, and I think our city will look much better, our streets will look much better, and we have trash cans that sit out there from one weekend to the other weekend, from the first of the year to the end of the year. And they are putting the wrong type trash in them. They are not being, and if you put fines on those people, you could get that to be straight out, and you could definitely get some more revenue instead of just putting it on us citizens that are abiding by the system.
Thank you much, ma'am. If you will, when we wrap up, would you see Mr. Harris, we want to get the blocks of the street blocks that you're talking about, because there is a current ordinance that says if the trash has been picked up, that you're supposed to have your garbage can off of the curb by 10 o'clock that night. And so for those places or individuals who aren't doing that, we're in a position today to help address that. Yes, ma'am. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. The young lady behind.
How you doing, Mayor?
Doing very well. Thank you for coming out.
I am just a citizen and a taxpayer, and I do agree with what you're trying to do for the city. But my thing is, once you're out of seat, out of your position that you're in right now, is towards making sure these things that are going to happen in our neighborhoods, the streets being fixed, the sidewalks being repaired. Because both these things in, once we get everything up and running, who would say that it's going to continue and it's going to be done in our neighborhood? Because our streets would have gotten this bad off. If we have to focus and put more money in just one area of the city. We need it also to be focused in our area too, because someone in my neighbor called Mr. Harris today because we've had 3 elderly people that my neighborhood fall, and one lady had an ambulance to pick up from my house because of the sidewalk was all cracked up, and she fell. And my question is, once you leave office, are we going to get a guarantee that this work is going to be done in our neighborhood? Yes, we're going to be paying the taxes because I've been paying over $200 a month for water bill. And in my area, there's areas right there where the sewage and the water main busted. I'm paying out of pocket. It's ridiculous. I don't mind paying taxes. I am a taxpayer. But I want to make sure if I'm going to go this in, it's going to be put in our neighborhood as well. So, and I want to know why my water bill is so high, because that's ridiculous.
All right. We'll help find it out. Let me answer the first part of your question. And it also is why it is that we are doing it, a suggestion that we do it this way. Because if we just take this additional revenue, and you don't end up specifically identifying it and committing it for a specific purpose, then a future council, and even this same council, could decide next year, or a year after next year, because I'll still be here for the next 3 years. The good Lord says the same, and hopefully we'll be in a position to have a good, healthy process and see who the next mayor is going to be. But if you do not commit and create a covenant with these dollars, to where legally and contractually the city of Shreveport is obligated to say, identify this money that goes to that purpose, then you could end up with the money being spent and dispersed and redirected. If we do it this way, what we're going to do is just like with your mortgage. We're going to leverage it. And we're going to dedicate this money every month to going towards paying off that lump sum that we get to be able to come back and do the work. And when we do that, we have a legal covenant and obligation as government that you can sue us behind, both individually and in our official position, if we fail to do what it is that has been authorized, signed, and duly entered into as the city of Shreveport. And so that is the way in which to ensure that it happens. Because what would happen is that would be, this is a 25-year franchise agreement. There's at least $6 million per year in revenue that's going to come to it. That $6 million per year goes every year for 25 years towards paying off that lump sum of $94+ million. We've got to put a year's worth of it, which is about $6 million in what they call a debt service fund, a reserve fund. The net we get to go out and specifically spend on the streets of the city of Shreveport. And we have to do that. And we're going to do what they call project manage this particular situation, so that we have the individual projects identified. We'll be able to follow and track. You'll be able to, those of you who go on the internet, you'll be able to go on the internet and find out, here's that project, here's that particular thing, here's where they're spending that money. The same thing we're doing with the money from the bond district. If you go to ShreveportBond2011.com, and you can see we sold the first $81.5 million in bonds. We're now going out to secure professional services to be able to spend the money that we're going to spend at Airport Park, at Hattie Park, and what have you. The money that we're now spending on the sewer system, you can track and follow all of that. And we're going to track and follow this the same way. And that commitment and obligation extends beyond my time in 10-year office. And it's an obligation and a commitment that a future mayor and a future city council can't break.
But let me say this before we go on. Anybody in here that's paying over $200 a month for your water bill, don't pay it no more. Call me. Call me, and I will be in the mayor's office the next morning. Call me if you got your water bill. If you got your water bill, because that's more than you pay in your church. If you have a $200 a month water bill, don't pay it no more. You call Joe Shine, get me your water bill, and I'll be sitting next to the mayor in his office, and we'll work it out.
In my chest.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. Right here next to Pastor John.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. with the Shepherd's Farm. I wanted to ask, is there going to be a prioritizing of streets and areas? I know that there are some areas that, for decades it seems, have had the same problems over and over. And then there are other areas where you see those streets being addressed over and over during those periods. So is it going to be prioritized as to addressing the areas that needed the works that, from the beginning? Or how is this going to work? And secondly, is there going to be a warranty for the work that is going to be done? I can appreciate the oversight, but is there going to be a warranty? Everything that we spend money on now, we are offered extended warranties. Or are they going to warranty this work in the neighborhoods?
Oh, 1 second. Big man helping a big man.
I don't know about the others, but I think it's great. We definitely need to see. I want to bring my family in. I want to bring my all over. I want to come to the city and like my street. All right.
Thank you, bro.
All right. It's good seeing you.
Specifically to the question, there is a current backlog of $87 million in streets that have been identified over the last 15 years by council members, by citizens, and what have you. That's going to be the first list of streets that will be cleared away. Then there's going to be additional money left over that, as we have planned, would go towards concrete panel replacement. $13 million at least that would go towards repairing and reconstructing concrete panels all across the city of Shreveport. And then you got other one that would go towards, we mentioned, the sidewalks and what have you. Now, when it comes to warranties, yes, contractors who perform work on behalf of the city of Shreveport do have to have, that's one of the reasons why they also are bonded. So in the event that we have a problem with their project and what have you, we have the ability to be able to come back, access those bond dollars, that kind of an insurance policy they put up. It allows us to be able to come back and get the problem fixed if they don't fix it. So now, for the specifics of that, since I'm not an engineer, I'll let Ron and Stan give you anything specific on that.
Mr. Mayor, is there a way that we can see the list of the backlog streets?
Yes, ma'am. I don't think we have a slide that has those, but we can have those. We have it online. We put it on the city's website. We can get a copy to Mr. White. I think we got a list of it, a list of them here that go by the arterials and the collectors. That's here. And the residential. We go from arterials to residential, to collectors, to residential. That's a total of $87,432,000 from across the city. Correct. Correct. And if you come Thursday, that's an excellent suggestion. If you come Thursday, we'll make sure that I have a slide that will have as part of the PowerPoint presentation. I also have some boards that have those streets on them as well, but we just did the PowerPoint presentation for today.
Where will that be on Thursday?
Thursday will be at the Randall T. Moore Center on Kings Highway in Fairfield. Randall T. Moore Center, Kings Highway in Fairfield.
Same time?
5:30 day. 5:30 day.
Instead of making all this call, your office or the city council's office, get any information.
Absolutely. As Councilman Shine just said, we can always call our office, the city council office, and get that information. And also, as we said, I'm a Twitterer, I'm an emailer, I'm a texter. So we put it online for the folks who do that as well. Yes, ma'am. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Mr. Shine, I would ask y'all a question. On Robert, I've been one time at Orleans, and on Roberts and Nashville, there's never been a sidewalk nowhere in my area since I've been there. And when I'm driving the bus, if I come out, you can't make that left nor that right onto Nashville. You go either fall in the ditch or back all the way back up on Roberts and go back down Mellon Street. Is there anything y'all can do about that? Because there's no sidewalks and the streets is just narrow.
They're taking notes to make a point to take a look at that.
Okay.
All right. And if you don't mind, get with us and make sure we get it right after the meeting between Stan and Ron. Yes, ma'am. Then we'll go back here after this young lady. Yes, ma'am.
I live in the Queens area, and I've been living there for 30 years, 20, 30 years. And my sidewalks are messed up, cracked all up. And it's been going up this for 30 years and never fixed it. They came down the street one time and fixed sidewalks, but they skipped my area. And I asked them why. They said they don't need to know why. But I sure would like to be fixed because I've been having trouble out of water washing.
Okay. Why don't you make sure we get your street, your block number, and we'll see whether or not that's on the current list of projects, and to see how we can get it onto the list to be done. Okay. Know that we'll have more resources available now to do it than we've ever had before. Yes, sir.
How you doing, sir?
Doing well, doing well. Somebody with a voice deep in mine.
My name is Mike Big Bear, Big Mountain. I have a mobile service that I've been running for 12 years here in Shreveport. And the budget is for, well, I'm speaking to somebody younger generation that's not here, but you would not believe the money that these kids spend on these rims. I mean, they, you know, get the potholes, they spend anywhere from $100, $150 bucks, you know, they knock out plug caps, clean the rims and everything. And there's a lot of money being spent on them that, you know, everybody don't know about it. And I say for last month alone, I think close to $10,000 between all the rim shops around here was spent on rims and cracked rims. And I know the young kids are they tired of seeing it. I'm actually tired of seeing it myself, but it wasn't me either. You know, and I'll say it like this: our roads are some of the worst I ever seen. You know, I've been in the military. You know, moved to Texas and everything, and it's always a joke about Shreveport roads. You know, and as far as fixing them, spending that kind of money, if it's going to cost another 3% to fix my roads and everything, and help everybody out, I'm all for it.
Thank you, sir. I had heard that the only folks who might be concerned about the road getting better were the folks who sell rims and we understand. We understand. Mr. Lee, and then we'll come back to you, sir.
You correctly stated that a diversified group of people were selected to be on the bonding committee this past year. I probably was the only person advocating for streets drainage in the bond proposal of the $175 million. Of the $500 million wish list, I had already stated that there was not enough money in streets and drainage and water and sewer. The question I have is, why wasn't the $94 million put into the original bond issue, number one, and then number two, why isn't the $94 million being brought to the citizens for a vote versus going specifically to the city council?
Both very good questions, and I appreciate it. As Mr. Lee has mentioned, that 16 citizen group heard $500 million plus. All of these projects, as well as all of the other issues that we have across the city of Shreveport, were put before them. The one thing that I understood, that the city council understood, and I think that you all as citizens understood, that you can't go up and charge up your credit card to its full capacity all at one time. Because you need to make sure that you got some slack in the chain when you need it, just in case you end up with some catastrophic set of circumstances that come along, something that needs to be done, and if you look up and you don't have the bonding capacity left under your current villages, then you end up having to increase taxes. And so that was part of what was the balance of this situation. Prior to this $175 million bond issue that you all voted for overwhelmingly, the largest bond issue ever in the history of the city of Shreveport was $150 $1 million. We almost doubled that and still did not have enough to be able to do as much as we wanted to. And because there are other priorities that we had to give attention to. As I mentioned, as bad as the streets are, the fact that you have sewer lines, like the young lady referenced earlier, that run under the streets of the city of Shreveport, that we ended up having to fix because one, it causes problems for you all, but it gets us in trouble also with the federal government. Because you can't allow sewer to be leaking and oozing out of the ground without the federal government coming in and begin to find you, begin to, I think we may need to close the door here because I think Mr. Mays is still waiting his argument. Appreciate the council. And so we knew we couldn't do everything all at one time. That wasn't practical for us to do. To have included the full $87 million for streets in this particular, that's on this list, plus the $79 million in concrete panel replacement work that needs to be done, plus the $12 million in sidewalk work that needs to be done, would have given us a bond proposal that would have been somewhere well over 200, approaching $300+ million. And for you all as voters to be asked to come and pass that all at one time, you appropriately would have stopped and said, I don't think, Mayor, we want to do that. And so we had to make choices and we made decisions. And I give credit to that bond citizen committee for doing what they did. We made it better, but it was not a complete solution. Now, part of what we also had to do, which is very important for me as well, is that I did not want to see it. Brother Foster mentioned about how it is that the crime situation has improved over the city over the last 3 years in the city of Shreveport. Part of that is because of you all as citizens helping to work with our police department, the police department becoming more proactive, but also because we try and give our young people positive and constructive things to do and positive and constructive places to do them. There's a significant amount of money in that bond issue that's going towards helping to renovate and expand and make better the recreational systems around the city of Shreveport. Airport Park is in line for a significant amount of dollars. Joe Shine wouldn't let them get away without having some significant dollars put in the airport park. But now let me tell you about another couple of parks around the city that aren't in Boytown or Hollywood that you guys may not even realize how limited they are. Happy Perry Park over in Kettle Heights. Do you realize that Happy Perry Park does not even have a kitchen in it? When you don't have a kitchen in your community center where you invite your senior citizens to come to during the daytime, you can't host a congregate meal program like we do in the other centers across the city. One of the things that I know from my experience, my first job with the city of Shreveport, the JTBA work, was as an assistant at the MLK Community Center, helping the Carroll community, the Council on Aging, serve the nutrition program for our senior citizens. When you don't have a kitchen inside a city recreation center, you can't host one of those. Haverhill Park doesn't have classrooms, doesn't have a weight room. They got weights and treadmills up on a stage inside the gym. The gym needs to be expanded, the heating and the air conditioning. And so, Mr. Lee, we had to make choices. And I wanted to make sure that in addition to addressing the problems under the street that ain't sexy, nobody gonna see, they're gonna be in the ribbons cut and the plaques presented when we're doing that work, but it needs to be done. Like the gentleman said, work that's been kicked down the road for a very long time, we had to make choices. And so we also made choices to say that for Valencia Park, over in Stoner Hill, a park that the city approved and built a few years ago. They built it without a kitchen, a little bit of room, a half a gym. So we're going to spend $1.5 million to make that a bigger, better facility, to make it more accessible for our seniors, to give our young people more to do in the after school hours as well. Bill Berry Park over on Lakeshore doesn't even have an inside gymnasium. does not have a kitchen. We just built that park back in the 90s. So we're going to spend $1 billion+ there. Because that's something that we need in order to be able to help to make that a place where our seniors can go during the daytime, our children in the evening and the after school hours and during the summer. Andrew Curry Park, up in Cherokee Park. My first term on the city council. Got $500,000 to enclose a basketball dome, that concrete dome. We spent $500,000 to enclose it, plug the air conditioning system onto it, and coat the floor. That's been paid on it since then. Mr. Lee, you got to make choices. I got unlimited needs, unlimited challenges, but your resources that you have available in order to be able to go out and address them are always limited. It's the same like we have our own.
Let me make one statement in relation to that too. Our water and sewage system has began to break down. And some of it has been in place even before Calhoun Alley got to be mayor. Now, well, that's probably before Cedric was born.
1970.
Right, and I'm not much older than that. But you have to understand, if we had not prioritized this money for our sewage system, the EPA was going to come in. You see, it's something that you just have to have done. Like Cedric said before, mayors before and city councils before, and especially the mayors, people don't like to spend money under the ground. Because you don't see that. You can't say after you get out of office, well, I have to do this, I have to do that. But it had gotten to the point where we had to spend this kind of money for our sewage system. And the mayor can put it online how much, it might be already online, on how much we spend for our sewage system. And we can only come to y'all and ask you for a certain amount of money, because I'm going to be truthful with you, I'm kind of conservative, I'm kind of tight when it comes to dollars. I don't like to waste it. And you all don't need an increase in your taxes. You don't, because a lot of y'all on fixed incomes anyway. And you can't spend no more. The way we're going about fixing the streets now is the right way. It was God sent. Because we didn't know why we was going to come up with some money. Look, when I first got on the city council, some of y'all old enough, we had all dirt streets out here. We had all dirt streets. We had 121 miles of all dirt streets all over the city of Shreveport. We had to, and excuse me for saying this, because sometimes you have to act the fool. We had to act the fool with John Huston, who was the mayor 25 years ago, to get him to say, hey, look, we got to do something about these hard dirt streets, because they're running out putting chemicals on the streets, because Ron wasn't with that department then. And all of it was in the black neighborhood, basically. And then you had a few poor white neighborhoods, where you had that little kids going out, eating that dirty with those chemicals on it, and we didn't know what kind of damage it might do 20, 30 years later. I see one of the good deacons there. He know when we was pouring that street in front of his house, what was that, about 25 years ago? 30. Well, yeah, 30 years ago, he was out looking at it, he said, Joe, I never think this would happen. So, we have to come back now and do our water and sewage. How many of y'all have seen these water breaks that we have all over the city? I get calls all the time. I stay on Ron then, because our water lines have begun to break down. Our sewage lines have begun to break down. And the mayor said, hey, look, we got to do something about this. I said, man, you're right. So that's why we couldn't include everything in this first bond proposal. But God sent us this opportunity to be able to come back now and do something about these streets. You know, a lot of times, things might not be done like you want them to be done. Because you know, sometimes you pray, God don't answer your prayers when you think He ought to. So how do you think the divine, y'all hear what I'm saying this time? The divine Sister Glover, Joe Shine can answer your problems a lot of times when God don't come and run and answer your problems when when you pray for Him. That's just the way life is. So this is the best way. What the man's talking about now, what we got together. And like I say now, we got some opposition down there. We got some opposition down there now. You got to understand, that's the way life is. But sometimes you got to use honey to get around the opposition. So this is why, even if the man had come to us with a $400 million, matter of fact, in America, we really got about $700 million worth of needs for the city. But you don't want to take your charge card all the way up to zero. Now I know this is going to sound foolish, but suppose we have an earthquake. You know they had an earthquake in D.C., and if you had told those folks a year ago that you have an earthquake in D.C., they say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. So you don't want to take your charge card all the way up. And all of this is not his fault. See, because we have to approve it. We wasn't going to approve no $400 million worth of bonding. But this is a way that we can do it, and it keeps the city safe. Thank you.
The question still hasn't been answered. $94 million plus $275 still only comes out to $200 million. So the question I'm asking is, why?
We got 87, let me get your math right. We got $87 million. That's on the backlog of streets to be reconstructed. You got $79 million of concrete panels to be done. You got $12.5 million worth of sidewalk repairs. Now, you want to keep going to...
No, but you're asking for $94 million.
That's correct.
So 94 plus 275 comes out to be less than $300 million. So the question I'm asking, since this is the third largest bond proposal in the history of the city, why is this proposal not being brought to the citizens versus being brought to the city council? That's my question.
It's being brought to the city council because this is not a general obligation bond proposal. The general obligation bond proposal is one that uses the ad valorem taxes collected on property in order to pay for and service the debt on those general obligation or GOB bonds. The city of Shreveport routinely issues what's called revenue bonds. Revenue bonds are bonds that are issued based upon either the full faith and credit of the city of Shreveport using lawfully available revenues to service the debt, or by a specifically identified revenue stream. The way our system is set up, because we are a republic, we elect people to go and represent us and to make decisions when it comes to the issuance of debt that's secured by a specified revenue source that's not ad valorem. We are set up for those votes to be made by our elected representatives, our city council members. But now, to give you further examples, every bit of debt that's issued by the water and the sewer department to do work in that regard are revenue bonds. They're secured by the revenue that's generated by the water and sewer bills that are paid by the citizens of the city of Shreveport. And every time work is authorized to be done that's paid for using that source of revenue, that is a vote of the city council. The vote that was done to approve the $40 million to build the Hilton in downtown Shreveport, that was a revenue bond situation. The revenue that's generated from the rooms that are rented at the hotel are used to pay off the $40 million that was used to build the hotel. So that was a vote of the city council, not a vote that would end up going back to the citizens of the city of Shreveport. Only when we want to make use of ad valorem taxes, your property taxes, are we required and obligated and mandated by state law to have an election before the voters of the
Okay,
state?
you know that no taxes were required on 175 million.
No increase in your taxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. And the reason for that is that if we had to have an election every time you wanted to be able to go out and do a specific set of projects for the city of Shreveport, then you would end up having such an inability to be able to get things done, because everything would be contingent upon waiting for an actual election to be held, and then you would be wondering, why is it that I voted for the person who represents me, that I expect to be my voice in the process, and who I hold accountable when he comes back to report and speak to us and report to us back at functions and meetings like this all across the city. Why is he there? If all we're going to have is, as is the case in some very small towns, a straight democracy where you bring everybody into town hall, you sit down, and you ask everybody to raise their hand, we want to do this, we want to do that. Some vote, some don't. You get a majority, then you do. That's not our system. We have a democratic republic where we elect our representatives to go and make these types of decisions.
Well, man, you know as well as I know, you're not constantly having bond issues. And I just thought it was interesting that we're in an election cycle. The election is next week, and then you have a general election in November. So it made sense to bring this back to the citizens. So, but you've explained yourself from that standpoint. Let's go to Senator. Thank you.
Well, here's what I'm also going to say, and that is there has been no other mayor and no other city council prior to this that has been required to bring a revenue bond situation before the voters of the city of Shreveport for the 100+ years, since 1835, since the 1870s when Brother Foster's ancestor C.C. Antoine incorporated us as an official city. The powers that have been vested in the city council and the mayor's office have been largely the same. They changed dramatically in 1978 when we went to a mayor-council form of government. One thing I'm not going to do is allow the power and authority that is invested in the council to be restricted and made smaller or made less. Neither am I going to allow the power that has been and authority that's invested in the mayor's office to be restricted and to be diminished and to be made less. If it was good enough, as I heard this gentleman say earlier, for Hightower, if it was good enough for Hazel and Huston and Bo Williams and all of those folks, then it's good enough for 70 Club and whoever's going to take 70 Club. And I know that there's some out there, maybe, brother, you may be one of them, who now wants to see, now that, maybe the tone and the tenor of the mayor's office has changed a little bit. Some folks are suggesting now need metro government. Don't just have a city, but if you elect the mayor from the whole parish, make Shreveport and Bossier one big city, those are some things that may have some other motives in mind in terms of what they're trying to achieve. But I think that the city of Shreveport is just fine where we are right now. We've got some issues and some challenges that we're working on. We're moving forward. We're better than what we used to be. And tomorrow we're going to be better than what we are right now.
Are we making this concrete to where it will continuously handle the excessive driving of these 18-wheelers? Because they do a lot of tearing. And that's in the box, out of the box. When are we going to do something about these red lights? Because we need some turn signals on all of these lights. Some of us going to get killed trying to get across the street.
But you know what I tried to do, and I'm going to let the engineers speak. What I wanted us to be able to have enough money, again, we don't have enough to do all that needs to be done. One of the things that we need for Shreveport is called an ITS system. It stands for Intelligent Traffic System. You notice on some of the red light stanchions across the city, some of you all think those are red light cameras. We don't have red light cameras. We don't have, they got another thing we don't have. Those cameras that you see in some places, that is a part of that ITS or Intelligent Traffic System, because what it does is that it has the ability, that camera is monitoring to see whether or not there are any cars waiting to go through the light. If they're not, and the other camera that's going the other way is steady reading car, it keeps the light green. So why? So you can keep traffic moving. Because if nothing is coming the opposite way, then why change the light? Now, we only have that in a few areas around the city because we've not had the money to be able to do it across the whole city. Part of one of the things that's on that list of unfunded projects would be the dollars to help program that through all of the cities. So you end up with a well-coordinated traffic system that is skewed and keyed based on actual circumstances as opposed to a time where we know more traffic on going this way, so we're going to leave the light for 2.5 minutes. We know less traffic go that way, so when it turns green, we're going to leave it for 1 minute and 15 seconds. And you just wait.
See, I understand that, but what I'm speaking about is the turnout when you're trying to make a turn, especially downtown.
But no, all of that's a part of it. Because that's a part of how you manage to be able to make those decisions about where you have your turn arrows. In fact, you got some situations that's confusing me in Shreveport now, because I see them in other cities, but we started doing it in some places here, where you got just the green arrow for the turn lane, while the other light is still red. You see what I'm saying? That's a part of how, when you do it as a complete system, you program all of that into it, so it ends up working in the most effective and efficient way possible.
Mayor, let me ask you this. Wherever you see that problem, write it down, and we'll get it to these two fellas right here, and we'll see what we can do in order to solve it.
And that's what they do.
That's what they do.
Right.
If you got a problem, instead of us just generalizing, if y'all understand what I'm saying, write your problem down. Write the address. If it's downtown, write the 2 streets where it is. We will get it to these two fellas right here. And let me tell you, they are good at what they do. Because if they don't, I'll be on, the mayor be on, and everything else.
I'm holding you to that, bro, Shine.
I want you to do that. That's why I'm holding you to it. That's why I'm holding you to it. Write it down.
Book on you that.
That's right. Write it down. And we're going to get it to these two fellas right here.
I know that most last Mondays of the month, Mr. White and the Wartime Advisory Council are right here. I know that Councilman Shine is here most, if not all, of those occasions. I'm here quite frequently as well. We have representatives of the city, from the police department, and property standards, who are here doing those. And so this is an ongoing dialogue. You know, one thing that has been a hallmark of the time that I've been doing this all along, and there's one thing, frankly, I watched and witnessed and learned from Councilman Shine. You can't ever be reluctant or afraid to come out and speak to and listen to and respond to the people who elected you. You know, we can't ask y'all to always come down and see us. We got to be willing to come out and engage and listen and hear the good and the bad. And that's what we do. And that's why, you know, when you all meet, we're here to hear you all. And you have the opportunity on an ongoing basis. That's why I like our folks to come every month. So if you've reported a problem from September and it's now November and we still haven't gotten around to it, like the trash can situation or sidewalk or whatever, and you're able to say, I told you about that, I want to know what we're doing. Water situation, so we can follow up. This is an ongoing dialogue. This ain't a drive-by and come out and say we came out to see you. You know, this is the way in which we engage. While we were here a few months ago, before we would sign off on, and I could go and ask Councilman Shine to support the idea of bringing these jobs over here. We got to come and ask and listen to and talk to the community. And I tell you, for me, where that comes from is that before I became and ran for city council, I was the president of the neighborhood association. I saw my parents come out, just like you all, and be concerned about what's going on in the neighborhood and organizing themselves to advance and advocate and address the issues there. And I was that young boy, again, wasn't little, I was that young boy, you know, that be sitting back there on the back row, you know, back when y'all, give them a ballpoint pen and a piece of paper. You know, you did. I'd be sitting and listening.
You didn't have no black, Blackberry.
I have a Blackberry, didn't have an iPhone. But that's what this is about. You all do it in the Wartime Advisory Council, you do it at Precinct 38, you do it at Hollywood Citizen Council, you do it the Forest Oak Association. That's what this is about.
And they do it at Jared's Barbershop.
Exactly.
Come by Jared's Barbershop. And Will, you know, Will call me anytime. Bro White will call me. I live out here in Motown. And I've had people to stop by and put notes on my mailbox. So when you got a specific problem, call, write it down, and we'll guarantee you we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. But you have to tell us what it is now. And let me tell you now, I kind of raised the mayor a while ago, but he can't read mine. I can't read mine. So if you got a problem, the only way we can solve it is for you to let us know. Like again, look, anybody out here with a $75 water bill? I can't. The man don't know what your water bill is. As smart as he is, I don't know what your water bill is. Call me, and I will get in my own Jimmy and come to your house. Will, you know that. Bro White, you know that. I've been coming to this meeting, well, I hate to say it, about 35 years. Y'all remember we used to meet down in Dr. Lester's office? 35 years. If you got any problem, write them down. I will come to you. You don't have to come down to the office. And if it's search, the mayor know I'll come by his office and harass him until he'll get in his truck and put me in the back. We'll come out here. Right. We will come out. Because I have had him out here. Matter of fact, I've had him out here walking the streets over there at Hollywood Heights. Walking the streets down there off of Powell Street. Walking some of the other streets. And I won't let him sleep. I won't let him sleep. I'll crouch and sprawl and kick and holler. And he'll tell his secretary, let me go out and take that Joe Shannon. But that's what you have to do sometimes.
I just said I don't want to treat you like you used to treat John Huston.
Oh!
But I try to stay on the good side. Good folks, at this time, we're right at a little past 8 o'clock. Now, that part of my objective is we want you to come back and continue to stay engaged. I can't keep you all night. And so at this point, I'm going to be here and we'll answer your question directly and welcome any other feedback and whatever that you have. But I don't want you all to leave here saying, "You're all night long." Coming back to the next Exactly. And Joe and I are both Methodists. And I want to tell you one of the things I heard Pastor say when I was a little boy. He said, one thing they say in the Methodist church is, "Blessed be the brief, for you shall be invited back again." So I want you all to invite you back. I want you to keep us timely and in good order. And again, we're going to be here to answer and address all issues and questions that have been raised. I want to thank you again for coming out. I appreciate you so much, and Pastor gave in a gesture of love and kindness and brotherhood. I'm going to invite you up here and see if you won't send us out a benediction, and we'll have us
be glad to.
safely on the wings of love.
Thank you very much. Nothing personal. Me and Joe.
Benediction that's going to send us out here on the wings of love.
But they teach us in the Baptist church, because I was up on the Dr. Hunt and the pastor over there. So they teach us in the Baptist church to love in spite of what people say. So with that, bow your heads. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for all that you have done, all that has been said, and all that you know is true. Father God, we thank you. We thank you for your loving kindness, your tender mercy. You taught us those that do not stand for something fall for anything. And we thank you for being good stewards over what you entrust us in. We love our mayor. We love our city. We thank you, Lord God. Let truth abide. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all.